Good afternoon, and welcome to the DFS Army YouTube channel. I am Razzle11, and you can find me on X at Razzle11Grinds. I'm going to take a look at the pitching for today, the 9th of July. It is Tuesday. We do have what is now a 10-game slate with St. Louis, Kansas City being postponed. This is a first look at pitching. I will be using DraftKings, as that is where a majority of my action is. On FanDuel, I would use a pool about a half of what I'd use on DraftKings, sometimes even a third. Pricing isn't as tight, so you don't have to be as creative. Plus, the scoring system being different obviously really lends itself to just big time strikeout pitchers, and they're usually the most expensive. But let's take a look here at some pitching. I don't think we should have too much weather to worry about. There is some worry about the White Sox Twins game. Last update I got, about a 40% chance of an in-game delay. Um, so we'll just focus on the pitching for what it is at this point. At the top, we get Chris Sale. We talked about him yesterday. He was pushed back until today. Um, K prop of 6.5 with juice strongly on the over. Little tougher matchup for him from a wins perspective, taking on Zach Gallen. He is a minus 120 favorite. Game total of 7.5. Perfectly solid option. He was going to be super chalky yesterday. Not as chalky today, but still should be fairly popular. Renault Blanco pitching at home, where he hasn't allowed many hits. His K numbers aren't as strong, but that's where his no hitter, home runs allowed are lower. Just hasn't picked up as many wins, and I think that's the only big thing keeping him a little low. That said, his strikeouts really haven't been there the last handful of starts. Walks are up a little bit. Certainly viable. I just don't know if his upside in the spot can match, that of Sale. With that said, obviously it's a great matchup. He's a minus 250 favorite. K prop of 5.5 with you strongly on the over. So that's a pretty intriguing K prop. It's a number he hasn't been above over the last three starts, but we have been picking on Miami so much that he's probably going to carry more ownership than I would have thought initially. Logan Gilbert taking on the Padres. Some of his road numbers have been stronger, but overall, I think he's just a better pitcher at home. Um, Not an ideal spot. San Diego doesn't strike out a ton. K prop of just 4.5. He is a minus 135 road favorite, but I think I would much rather play the two guys above and even Scherzer right below. So right now I'm leaning towards fading Logan Gilbert. Scherzer pitching on the road, but he's looked pretty good in his three starts. Really solid against a difficult Baltimore squad. San Diego was so-so. Issue, he just hasn't had the strikeouts. And it might take a little bit for those to show up for him as he kind of gets his feet under him. He is a minus 175 favorite. K prop of 6.5. Juice is on the under, but still, it is a K prop of 6.5 at this point. I just like the matchup. I think most of the Angels lineup has been struggling of late, if I remember from yesterday's research. So I would prefer Scherzer over Gilbert at this point. Jake Irvin absolutely dominated this Mets squad the first time he faced them. He's been absolutely phenomenal pitching on the road. Uh, Obviously, his last start was against this Met squad. So generally, I give a little boost to the offense in seeing somebody, a second time in 5 days. But with that said, I think we do have to consider him. His K prop's just 5.5 right now. He's a slight underdog. The Mets are minus 135 favorites, but still, I think Irvin is interesting. I just don't know if we're going to get there. 21 plus DK points in 7 of his last 8 starts. It's really impressive, to be honest. That alone makes me kind of think we need to consider him in our pool. and he's probably going to be somebody that's pretty low owned, to be honest with you. Zach Gallen, as many of you know, I love using Zach Gallen when he's pitching at home. He's pitching at home. He is a slight home dog. Game total of 7.5. K prop, I believe, is at 5.5 with juice very strongly on the over. Uh, for me, Zach Gallen at 8,900 feels like just a must play. Um, Problem is Atlanta's power is starting to wake up a little bit, but um, I still think I want to use Zach Gallen. The issue is there's a lot of guys here that we want to use, so we need to trim a pool down a little bit. Right now, I'm going to keep Zach Gallen in, but I'm just not sure what my final numbers are going to look like. If we keep adding guys, I might end up having to remove Scherzer, Gilbert, and Scherzer for sure. Then at that point, and then make Gallen on kind of a borderline. Um, Ober could be a borderline just due to weather, but he's looked so good that I would like to use him. He did struggle against the White Sox the first time he faced them, um, but still, he's just looked pretty good much of this season, and it is a great matchup. Lodolo making his return from the IL. Um, Missed about 2 weeks. I love the upside. We know Colorado's super weak overall. It's going to be really hard to get away from the Lodolo. K prop was 7.5. Juice is on the under, but he's a minus 175 favorite. I love the upside of Lodolo at this price point. Uh, didn't didn't make a rehab stint, but I would guess that he's probably going to throw 80 to 90 pitches. Um, but we'll have to pay attention to some news. Maybe it comes out that he's going to be limited. I'm not sure. I don't expect him to be, but certainly possible. Talked about Ober already. Fetty's had a pretty impressive season. I'm just not picking on the Twins' offense right now. The way they've been scoring, he absolutely dominated them earlier in the season, but he's kind of come back down a little bit the last few starts. Um, I'm just gonna take and ride the Twins' offense a bit more. But like I mentioned, there's some weather issues potentially in that game, uh, so pitching might just have to come off the board. Kikuchi does a good job of limiting home runs on the road. He's in a ballpark that doesn't allow a lot of home runs to be hit. He's somebody that I think is going to garner some ownership. I'm torn right now. I think I'm going to leave him out of my pool. Um, he's a slight road dog. Game total 7.5. K prop of 4.5 with juice on the over. Uh, I'm just not sure that he's going to make it. Brian Bayo probably going to make my pool. There's plenty of strikeout upside in this matchup. He's been pretty bad at home, so that's a big worry. He struggled against Oakland the first time, so there's another worry there. But on the surface, it should be a good matchup. K prop of 5.5. Vegas line, he is a minus 205 favorite. Game total of 10.5 though, so that's a bit worrisome. He's kind of a borderline play for me right now. But again, we're already talking about a lot of different players, so I am gonna have to trim some guys on my pool to try to get myself around 8 guys in my pitcher pool by the time the slate starts. Blake Snell coming off of the IL. Um, I'm gonna take a look at some of his rehab numbers. It was dominant in his last start in the minors in the rehab department. His K prop is 5.5. I believe Juice was on the over actually. Um, Let me find that again. 4.5 with Juice on the over. Um, he is a minus 120 favorite. He's super volatile. Toronto isn't a huge K team. I'm a big Blake Snell fan for DFS purposes, but he's just throwing a ton of pitches early and often. I think I'm at a point now where I kind of need to see him do it before I jump back on. It's really tough for me to do because I know nobody's going to want to click on his name, based on what he's done for them this year. A lot of that is the fact that he sat out the spring training due to Scott Boras being his agent and just looking for money only. He has made comments about how missing spring training has really set him back. So he's I would expect at some point he rounds into form. I just don't know when that's going to be. So at this point, maybe it is best to play the wait and see. But it's tough for me because I do really like his upside in general. As far as any other pitchers down here, I'm not really considering much at all. Colin Ray coming off of you know 4 great starts over his last 5. Certainly an option for some people. Kind of depends. I haven't seen a Pittsburgh lineup or anything. I think O'Neill Cruz is dealing with a little something, so maybe. But I just don't. Not overly excited to use Colin Ray. Um, at least instead of using some of these other guys above him, it just really feels like a slate where we're just gonna spend some money on pitching. Because as we go down, there's guys that don't really interest me at all. Um, Looking at some of these K props of maybe guys that we didn't mention, I'm not really seeing anything that stands out to me. Um, I mean, Cal Quantrill's K props at 5.5 with juice on the under, but do I really want to take him pitching in Cincinnati? Not really. You know, but there we have it. There's the first look at pitching for the day. If you enjoy what I bring to you, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, turn the notification bell on to get the alert anytime we drop videos here at DFS Army. If you want to join us and get access to our coaches, tools, sheets, Discord, etc., I will put links in the description below. You can use promo code RAZ, that's RAZ, for 10% off monthly. And as always, best of luck, everybody.